Hi, I'm Amy Jo, and I've been doing a video series on the book of John. Specifically, I'm looking at the 7 I am statements of Jesus in the book. I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. I am the gate for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And I am the true vine. Also, we looked at the miracles. Jesus changing water to wine. Jesus healing the sick boy that was dying, Jesus healing the crippled man, feeding the 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fish, walking on water, opening the eyes of the man born blind, and raising Lazarus from the dead. Today, we're looking at when Jesus said, I am the true vine, which is the last of the 7, and also Jesus changing water to wine, which is the first of the signs. And I put these two together because grapes and wine seem to go together, but I'm not sure there's really any connection other than that. So we're going to look at the two separately. And first we're going to look at the miracle of Jesus changing water into wine. Now, when we talked about the other miracles last week, kind of a sum up, all of the rest of these miracles were life-changing events. So the boy was dying, and now he's not. The man couldn't walk for all of his life, but now he can. Feeding 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fish is like very miraculous, very impressive. Walking on water, no one else can do that. Opening the eyes of a man born blind completely changed his life. And Lazarus gave him another chance at life. So it just kind of seems like this changing water to wine doesn't fit. And it kind of makes us wonder, why did John include that miracle? Maybe he just thought it was cool. Maybe it was more of an attention grabber. Maybe he included it because the other gospel writers, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, didn't include this miracle of changing water to wine. Now, I could change water into juice like this. And that's not really that impressive. You've probably seen magic tricks that are cooler than that. So, I don't think this was really a miracle chosen to impress us. Was he maybe trying to show that Jesus is interested in the regular things of our lives, like getting married or being at a social gathering? Maybe he's trying to say that marriage is important. John does say that it's his first miracle, so that's kind of important. And John also notes that after this miracle, his disciples believed in him. But this isn't really the only thing that happened that caused the disciples to believe in Jesus. So that's probably not it either. Now, it's likely and very possible that John included this miracle for many different reasons. So I'm going to share about how this miracle is likely much more than just I wanted to share how this miracle is likely a much more important sign than it seems to be at first. Because when we remember what John's purpose was that he told us, he writes in John chapter 20, verses 30 through 31, Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not included in this book. So many other signs besides these 7. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. So I think there is a very important reason that John included this miracle. So let's read it. Starting in John chapter 2. On the 3rd day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." "Woman, why do you involve me?" Jesus replied, "My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now." What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Now, let's see. So, I think that John is making a connection to the Last Supper. And so we know from the other Gospels that Jesus said that the wine at the Last Supper represented his blood, which was shed for us. And just like the feeding of the 5,000 was linked to the Last Supper, I think that this miracle is also linked to the Last Supper. So even though John doesn't record the Last Supper, everyone would have been familiar with it by the time John wrote his gospel. They would have regularly been sharing communion together and talking about how Jesus said, "This bread is my body and this wine is my blood." So why do I think this? First of all, when we look at where the water came from, not every detail in the Bible has enormous significance, but usually the details in John's gospel do have meaning. Jesus had the servants fill the jars that held water for ceremonial washing. So the water from these jars was just a religious symbol of being cleansed and being purified. And Jesus changed this water into wine, which we know symbolizes his blood. So I think that here John is saying, and Jesus is saying, that just like under the old covenant, they would use water to wash away their sins and their impurities, now Jesus has come and shed his blood to wash away our sins and make us truly pure. Now, when I was doing research, I didn't find any scholars to back me up on that, but if I had more time, I think I could find some that would support that, because it's not a crazy thought that Jesus cleanses us from sins. But I do want to share with you what I did find while I was doing the research. Look at the wine in the Old Testament. We can see that it's connected with some of God's promises. So in Isaiah chapter 25, verse 6, Isaiah writes, "On this mountain the Lord Almighty will prepare a feast of rich food for all peoples, a banquet of aged wine, the best of meats, and the finest of wines." So we see that, God is, in the end, he's going to restore everything and set up his kingdom on earth. And Isaiah is talking about a feast of rich food and the finest of wines. And here in John chapter 2, the master of the banquet referred to this wine as the best wine. You've saved the best until now. So there's a connection there. Also in Amos chapter 9, verse 13 through 15, he writes, "The days are coming, declares the Lord, when the reaper will be overtaken by the plowman and the planter by the one treading grapes. New wine will drip from the mountains and flow from all the hills, and I will bring my people Israel back from exile. They will rebuild the ruined cities and live in them. They will plant vineyards and drink their wine. They will make their gardens and eat their fruit. I will plant Israel in their own land, never again to be uprooted from the land that I have given them, says the Lord your God." So again, we see that God's final promise, his future promise of restoring everything and setting everything right, includes this idea of excessive amounts of wine and high quality wine with this feast. So that's what I think. So that's two of the main reasons that I think John included this miracle in his book. Now, also, if you read it closely and study, you'll see a lot of other themes that are carried throughout the book of John are connected with this miracle. So that's also very, very cool. But we don't have enough time to get into all that. I do want to close today by reading the first part of John chapter 15, where Jesus says, "I am the true vine." This is the last of the I am statements. And it's just a really beautiful passage, and I don't think you really need a lot of explanation for it. I think you would really enjoy just reading it a few times yourself. I do have some grapes here If you want to think about, how these grapes, when they were connected to the vine, when this little stem was connected to the vine, that's when it was growing and producing this fruit. And now that it's been cut, this branch will not produce any more fruit. And unless this fruit is eaten or used in some other way or preserved, it will go bad. So thinking about that, and as an illustration for our relationship with God, let's read this passage where Jesus declares that he is the true vine. So John chapter 15. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself, it must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands, and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you, that you might go and bear fruit, fruit that will last, and so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. This is my command: love each other. It was hard for me to pick a song for this week, but I did land on a song called I Miss You by Shane and Shane. It's not a new song, and it's not incredibly popular. Probably most people have never heard of it, unless you're a fan of Shane and Shane. I don't think it was really a song that was on the radio, but I do think that it speaks to kind of many of the themes that are in both of these passages of Jesus turning water to wine and also Jesus declaring, I am the true vine. This song, it could have different meanings for different people. It's kind of artistic in that way. It can be interpreted a few different ways. But it seems to be about someone who had been close to God in the past, but had recently maybe been trying to find satisfaction in other ways. And it also talks about how God is better than anything the world offers us. And it's also about longing for God's presence, both now and in the future when Christ returns and we can be with him. Thank you for joining me tonight. And there will be one more video that will bring all of these things together in Jesus' final days with his leading up to his death and his resurrection. Have a great week.